Hey everybody, thanks for joining me. We are going to look at the third issue in the X-Men Wildcats crossover. I've already done the first one I did was, I was going to say my favorite, but it's a real toss-up between my favorites of the one that Adam Hughes drew, which is just so goddamn beautiful, and it reads well. Just a really, really great book. I did a video on that. And then there's the one by Travis Charest. That one just blew our socks off. Every one of us who saw that was like, holy shit, look at how good he become. Like, he was good, but he just took it to a whole other level. It was so amazing. So Jim Lee drawing X-Men and Wildcats, this has got to be amazing, right? It sure is not. I've talked about this. I was going over, I recently just, I did a video of Wildcats #3, and I was talking about in that video at length, and I've done a little bit before, of how Jim Lee was just the best artist ever to me during this period, during Uncanny X-Men and regular X-Men. He was just so good. No one was better. Everything about him was just amazing. But I didn't realize it at the time, but as he got onto his Image Comics work, his work just became less interesting, just less with every page that he drew. On occasion, like in Wildcats #3, in that video, I was pointing out how his heart and soul was in that one. He had some kind of vibe that was going on that was working. But something, maybe it's just my tastes changed, my interest changed, but his work was just not the same, and it wasn't interesting. And this is another one. Like, this should be awesome, and it's kind of okay, but it's just not that interesting. Jim Lee seems like a great dude. And he draws a lot. To give him credit, it's like some of the Image guys that you want to see draw. McFarlane doesn't draw anymore. He inks and writes and runs his business, but he draws very, very little. Liefeld, unfortunately, draws all the goddamn time. Silvestri does very little. He's just finishing up his Batman Joker book. Larson is doing Dragon consistently. So credit to Jim Lee. And I mentioned this, I think I did on my Wildcats #3 review, that I've actually met Jim Lee once. I live here in Salt Lake City, Utah, and it just was announced there's this local comic shop, and they put it out on social media, I think literally the day before. They're like, Jim Lee's coming to town, and he has a few free hours, so he's going to be here to sign books, a maximum of 2 books total that you can bring. Show up and come meet Jim Lee. And I took off work. I was in the middle of a failing marriage with a wife who hated me, and I'm like, I'm going to go see Jim Lee. I need some joy in my life. I'm off. I'm going to go look at that shit. And so I met up with my brother, and we went and got in line, a huge line, and I got to meet Jim Lee. And that's me and him. It's for anyone who gives a shit. That's me. And there's Jim Lee. Fucking just so great. I brought my copy of X-Men #1 that I bought off the rack years ago for him to sign. And I've got a black and white collected edition of Batman Hush that I had him sign. It was so hard to decide what do you bring. You get an opportunity for 2 things. And what do you bring for Jim Lee to sign? I'm like, oh my God, I had so many different things. Should it be Wildcat? Should it be his first regular run issue of Uncanny X-Men with Captain America? Should it be what? This, that, the other? I didn't know, so I just grabbed X-Men and that Batman book. Sit down. I'm like, I'm telling you, having seen the guy in interviews, followed his work for years. Now, this was, I'm going to say, this is 2016 or 17, to give you a context of how a couple years ago this was. But to get there and meet him and say, hey, thank you. You are a big inspiration to me. I draw. Your work has meant the world to me. And he's very kind. He's like, thank you, man. I appreciate it. And then you hand off your cell phone. They got a guy standing there, so you can give your phone to the guy. You set it up and they take a picture. And he basically does the same pose for everybody. But, I mean, what else do you do? Throws up a smile. Like, I get a little emotional even talking about it. I was so happy. I was glowing. I was floating on a cloud. This interaction lasted 3 or 4 minutes, 5 at most, because there's a big line. So you want to take a minute to say something, but you got to move on and get the fuck out of the way because everyone's in line. This was a magical moment to meet Jim Lee. And he's so cool. I'm not cool, but he's cool. But I was so happy. One of the greatest moments to meet your artistic hero. Love it. Anyway, met him. And so I want to sing his praises there for a minute because I also have to bring up how his work become less interesting. And you'd think a Wildcats Xmen would be a home run. And maybe it was sales-wise. I don't fucking know. But everything in here is kind of done well and drawn well. It just kind of, I didn't care. The Adam Hughes one, man, I was on board with that completely. The Travis Charest one, if I'm being honest, I think the artwork carried that. I was so shocked by how amazingly good that was. It was beyond description. The story, I think, was kind of okay. I can't even begin to really tell you what happened in this thing. That's Grifter. Cole Cash is his name. But if you see the dialogue, so mon ami, what you in for? You know whose fucking hand this is. That is clearly Gambit. They're in jail somehow, some way, somewhere. They say some shit back and forth, and for some reason, in this world, Wildcats and Xmen exist together, I guess, because Nick Fury shows up and gets Grifter out of jail, and then explosions happen. The Brood show up. So we got to fight them. And so Grifter grabs Nick Fury's gun and they start shooting the monsters. Again, this is all... Like, I don't feel like Jim Lee is half-assing it. But it's just not interesting. I wish that there's a little bit of me, I'm like, I wish that he would rein in his need to draw big, exciting imagery on every panel, on every page, and do some smaller, more thoughtful storytelling, and then save the big, awesome images for when it's really more interesting. Which is what I kind of felt like his older work had. But you go back and look at it, I'm sure it's the exact same goddamn thing. I don't know what it is. I can't tell you why it is not interesting anymore. It's all there. It's all detailed. I can tell what's going on. It's just, it's not good anymore. To me. Giant double-page spread of a helicarrier. It's fine. Yeah, girl's ass. That's okay. He's done better asses. Now we're with the Xmen, and this is like the original 5 version of them, so kind of like the younger versions of them. Jean Grey is going off somewhere for, what does it say? Letting Jean leave for that modeling gig in Australia. So that's where she's going, to an airport, and Beast is driving there with his foot on the steering wheel because he's Beast, and I guess Jean Grey's hot enough to get a modeling gig, I guess? I mean, was that anything that was ever happening in the books? But, you know, Cyclops shows up because they're having, like, emotional problems. I guess Cyclops, being the rigid kind of dumbass that he is, he has a hard time expressing his emotions to Jean Grey, even though they're clearly in love. But they talk him into it. Angel flies him down here so they can hug. And, sorry, I just got distracted for a minute because for as much as I say I'm not into what Jim Lee's doing with a lot of his artwork, that Jean Grey is kind of sexy as fuck, man. That ridiculously skimpy little outfit. I don't know that Jean Grey in this era was like the little sex pot that he's drawing her hair to be. I felt like she was maybe a little more kind of conservative because she was younger. But as a drawing, that's pretty sexy. I got a little bit distracted. Whatever, the X-Men doing shit. Cyclops, Jean Grey, you got Warren Worthington. She gets on a plane to fly away. More futuristic, technological. This looks like shit right out of Wildcats, of like technological crap and guys covered in gear and a big nondescript base. And I don't care about any of it. But Fury with S.H.I.E.L.D., I guess, is telling Grifter here they're going to have him do something. He's going to join them and for something. I don't even fucking care. Jean Grey's on a plane, and I don't know if she has a vision of giant monster things or if it actually happens. I think she's just having like an emotional meltdown. Oh yeah. I think there's a guy who's possessed like an alien, but she's psychically picking it up, but it's actually just this dude here, and that's why she's freaking out. If I knew how to use Photoshop and my disgusting sense of humor, I would probably do some fucked up shit. Anyway, so Grifter, he's with blonde-haired girl, and they're talking about whatever. Who cares? It's Grifter looking tough, I guess. He's still looking tough. Bad guys show up and start machine gunning things. This is an interesting thing. I remember this standing out. You see this super thick black ink line around these figures? Kind of unsure why they did that. I think there's a couple different inkers doing different pages. This doesn't feel like a Scott Williams thing. Alien monsters are there blowing away people. Jean Grey sees somebody die, so now she's pissed. So she's going to get involved and do some mind shit. Big alien showing up. Grifter does something, and he's having a little psychic spaz, and she helps him out of it. Oh, I bet a romantic relationship burgeons between Grifter and her, because in the X-Men, everyone's got to be making out with somebody else. And if not fucking, they're making out. And they established that Jean Grey and Scott were having a little bit of like emotional connection problems. Oh, yeah, we got stupid, might as well be Deadpool. Pike is his name, and he's talking to Don't Call Me Mr. Sinister. That's the least interesting version of Sinister I've ever seen. And this is Jim Lee. This is interesting because I just recently did a review of Thunderstrike. In issue 1 or 2, I was doing it with my brother. And one of the panels, the panel border was like a phone cord, an old school phone cord like you don't see much anywhere. And I was like, I have never seen that anywhere. Well, right here. This is fucking ironic as shit. There's several panel borders of, looks like a phone cord. I mean, why? Why? Oh, well, she's on the phone. All right, so there you go. That's why they threw that in there. This drawing's not too bad. Oh, look, they're getting kind of close. Relationships are burgeoning, infidelity. Oh, shit. Making out. Get her, Grifter, get her. This design, this costume of hers, it's one of those like where it's like the classic design, but it makes no sense in the realm of a girl who's going to go fight mutant monsters and terrorists and bad guys, where she's like wearing a little dress and this little pointy mask thing. It looks really ridiculous, and I'm not surprised they don't use it anymore. But once you see her in that outfit, when not Deadpool shows up to fight not the aliens from the xenomorph thing. Oh my god, I even threw in real pictures. Jagger, Lennon, Reagan. I'm sorry. Somebody tell me who that is. I'm sure I should know. Once you got Rocket Man guy, Elton John. Who is that? I'm sorry. I don't know all my old celebrities. Anyway. It just keeps going, doesn't it? Doesn't she look ridiculous? Like, the outfit's kind of sexy. It looks like a Halloween costume. Not something you would wear when you're going to go battle xenomorphs and Deadpools and mutant monsters and Sinisters. It's just kind of stupid. But in a comic, you kind of make anything work. There's not Deadpool jumping in, kicking Grifter in the face. There's Mr. Sinister looking boring. Oh, and they got oh yeah, right. With Sinister back here somewhere, wherever the hell he was. It doesn't matter, but he has Zealot strung up back here. And that's where she's here. I guess they're here to free her. Maybe this is where they met? I think. Who cares? Not Deadpool, because he doesn't have two ninja swords crisscrossed across his back there. He's not Deadpool. I'm not Deadpool. I'm not Deadpool. I'm Pike. The X-Men show up. Grifter and Cyclops have a mouth off. Gun pointed, eye blast ready to shoot, but then their bullets and their lasers get blocked by the girls. Or maybe just Jean Grey. Maybe she just used it to block the stupid men from trying to beat each other up. And they're like, ugh, men. Right? Men are stupid. Maybe you two should go make out or something like that. Who needs men? Wah, wah, wah. Yeah. And he's like, so who's your friend, referring to Grifter? And she's like, oh, just some dude I made out with. And so Cyclops beats the shit out of her back on the way to the team, to home base. And the only thing I thought was really kind of clever and interesting, and this is stupid, the very last panel at the bottom, there's Grifter saying, that's it, close the book, it's over. I don't know why. I kind of like that. I thought that was kind of a whimsical, kind of funny little thing. He's like, he's looking at you, the reader, breaking the fourth wall like Deadpool, not Deadpool over there. He's like, it's done, close the book, it's done. I kind of like that. So good job, Scott Lobdell. You wrote something interesting. Jim Lee, pencils, Scott William inks, additional inks, Sal Regla, and all these other guys. Jesus, a whole bunch of ink assists. Anyway, there's a breakdown of the cover and then a Neil Adams variant, which I don't think looks very good. I mean, it's fine, I guess. It's not any worse or better than Jim Lee's. You think Jim Lee's would be awesome, but it's not. So, yeah, I wish that this was better than it was. You know what's weird? So there were 4 issues. I wish I could remember. There was Silver Age, Golden Age, blah, 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 blah. The Adam Hughes one, probably the best story and artwork. The Travis Charest one, probably best in terms of just artwork. Jim Lee's version, Silver Age, kind of not bad, but not great. But you know, when I had all of these books, there was 4. And the one that I thought at the time was the worst of them all was this one, The Dark Age, drawn mostly by Matt Broom. Wait a minute. This happens a lot. Look at the size difference between these books. Does this happen a lot? Like they're sitting flush on the same bottom surface here. See how much significantly different tall this is? I've started noticing this. That is not a small thing. Anyway, not to detract too much. Holy shit. I thought that this one would be the worst one because Matt Broom, he's certainly a competent artist. I shouldn't get too much into this because I want to review this one on its own. But I dug this book out and flipped through it. This was way more interesting than this. And Matt Broom's not a fraction of the artist that Jim Lee is in every measurable aspect, but Matt Broom went for it. He fucking threw his heart and soul into it. You can feel the heart and soul from the artist on The Dark Age versus Jim Lee on this one. And Scott Lobdell wrote kind of an interesting thing, but this one, written by Warren Ellis, he writes some interesting shit. I know he's kind of questionable. He's done some questionable shit, but his stories, his writing, I love it. Anyway, we'll look at that one at a later date. This one, not very exciting, not great. It's just kind of there. It just exists. I wish it was better. But anyway, at least I got a chance to show off my picture of me and Jim Lee. You get to see what the hell I look like. Not very interesting. Who cares? But that's it. That's the end of the story. Close the book. It's over.